Before the rise of Greece, before the glory of Persia, and long before Rome shaped the West, there existed a powerful empire hidden in the highlands of Anatolia. An empire that mastered the chariot. An empire that wrote the world's first international treaties. An empire that stood toe-to-toe with New Kingdom Egypt in one of the most legendary clashes of the ancient world. This is the story of the Hittite Empire, a civilization both brutal and brilliant, and one of the greatest powers of the late Bronze Age. So, who were the Hittites? Around 1650 BC, a people speaking an Indo-European language established a kingdom in what is now modern-day Turkey. They called their land the land of Hatti, and their capital, Hattusa, was a formidable fortress city, protected by massive stone walls. What set the Hittites apart early on was their military prowess. They were among the first to master ironworking, giving them a technological edge in weapons and tools. But their true game-changer was the chariot. The Hittite chariot wasn't just a vehicle. It was a revolutionary weapon platform. Unlike the Egyptian two-man chariot designed for a driver and an archer, the Hittite version was heavier and carried 3 men, a driver, a shield-bearer for protection, and a warrior armed with a long spear. This turned the chariot from a mobile archery platform into a heavy shock cavalry unit, capable of smashing through enemy infantry lines. This innovation made the Hittite army one of the most feared military forces of its time. But the Hittites weren't just warriors. They were also master diplomats. They understood that power wasn't just about conquering land, but also about controlling it through alliances and agreements. The Hittites pioneered the use of written treaties to formalize relationships with their neighbors and vassal states. These weren't simple promises. They were detailed legal documents, often invoking 1,000 gods as witnesses, and outlining specific obligations, punishments for breaking the pact, and benefits for loyalty. They created a complex web of alliances that stabilized their empire and projected their influence far beyond their borders. With their military might and diplomatic skill, the Hittites began to expand. Under ambitious kings like Suppiluliuma I, they pushed south into Syria, encroaching on a region long considered to be within Egypt's sphere of influence. For decades, these two superpowers eyed each other warily, their ambitions clashing in the Levant. This rivalry would eventually lead to one of the most famous battles in all of ancient history. The year is 1274 BC. The Egyptian pharaoh, Ramesses II, marches a massive army north to reclaim the strategic city of Kadesh. Waiting for him is the Hittite king, Mu'attali II, with an equally formidable force. What followed was the Battle of Kadesh, a colossal clash involving thousands of chariots and tens of thousands of soldiers. Initially, Ramesses fell for a Hittite trap. Deceived by spies, he advanced too quickly, leaving his army divisions spread out. The Hittite chariots charged, smashing into the Egyptian flank and throwing them into chaos. Ramesses himself was nearly captured, but he rallied his personal guard and, with the timely arrival of reinforcements, managed to fight his way out of the encirclement. Both sides claimed victory. Ramesses covered the temples of Egypt with inscriptions and reliefs, celebrating his personal heroism and divine intervention. The Hittites, for their part, maintained control of Kadesh and portrayed the battle as a clear success, having stopped the Egyptian advance cold. In reality, it was a bloody stalemate. Neither empire could decisively defeat the other. The true genius of the Hittites and Egyptians shines in what happened next. After years of continued conflict and facing new threats from the rising power of Assyria, both sides realized that endless war was unsustainable. Around 1259 BC, Ramesses II and the new Hittite king, Hattusa III, did something unprecedented. They signed the Treaty of Kadesh, also known as the Eternal Treaty. This wasn't a truce. It was a comprehensive peace and alliance pact. It established permanent borders, pledged mutual non-aggression, and even included a defensive alliance, promising to aid each other if attacked by a third party. A copy of this treaty, inscribed on a clay tablet, was discovered in the ruins of Hattusa, and a replica now hangs in the United Nations headquarters. A testament to the world's first great peace accord. So what was life like inside this empire? At the top was the king, who was not just a ruler but also the high priest and chief judge. The Hittite legal system was remarkably advanced for its time, focusing more on restitution than on brutal retribution, a stark contrast to the eye for an eye code of Babylon. Hittite society was a rich tapestry of cultures, a multilingual empire that absorbed the traditions, languages, and even the gods of the peoples they conquered. They were meticulous record keepers, and their vast archives of clay tablets give us incredible insight into their religion, economy, and daily life. They worshipped a vast pantheon of gods, famously calling their kingdom the land of 1,000 gods. But like all great empires, the Hittite story has an end. Around 1200 BC, the late Bronze Age world was thrown into chaos. A mysterious group of migrating peoples, known in Egyptian records as the Sea Peoples, swept across the eastern Mediterranean, toppling kingdoms and burning cities. Famine, internal rebellion, and these external invasions combined to create a perfect storm. The sophisticated network of trade and diplomacy that the Hittites had built collapsed. The capital, Hattusa, was abandoned and burned. The mighty Hittite Empire, a superpower for over 400 years, vanished from the stage of history. For centuries, the Hittites were all but forgotten, known only through scattered references in the Old Testament. It was not until archaeologists began excavating in Turkey in the early 20th century that the full scale of their civilization was rediscovered. Today, we recognize the Hittites for their incredible contributions, their pioneering use of iron, their revolutionary chariot warfare, their sophisticated legal codes, and their groundbreaking diplomacy that created the world's first known peace treaty. They were a civilization that proved that true power lies not just in the strength of your army, but in the wisdom of your treaties and the resilience of your culture. The Hittites may have fallen, but their legacy as one of the ancient world's first great superpowers endures. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this journey back in time, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell for more stories from our ancient past. See you next time.